Known for directing some of the most memorable films that are still loved today, Stanley Kubrick was the one director who brought an entirely new meaning to the word meticulous. Some say he was insane, others say he was intelligent. I say he was simply ahead of his time. When Kubrick was 13, he was given a camera for his birthday from his dad. He went around New York City taking pictures. Around the age of 17, he became an avid moviegoer. He planned to make his first film, which was a documentary, with his friend in the 1950s. That was his start to what would become an amazing career. His films range from comedy to drama, but Kubrick is also known for his use of one-point perspective shots.
He's considered by critics, well, who cares about critics anyway, but and especially by his fellow filmmakers, to be one of the greatest directors that has ever worked in our business.
You could see an incredible intelligence about him, you know, and he had a very weird, very black sense of humor. I mean, you weren't quite sure you'd heard it at first. It was so bizarre.
Come on, come on, Dad. Come on.
He never did any interviews, but allowed his daughter Vivian to film behind the scenes of his movies. In the making of The Shining, Kubrick worked with Danny Lloyd. Since he was so little, Kubrick made it a point to make sure he didn't know that he was filming what would become one of the most iconic horror movies of all time.
Good.
You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you. Now get up. Get on your feet.
Mandrake, I suppose it never occurred to you.
A bay doors help.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Here's Johnny.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. Who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. Hey there, hi there, ho there, you're as welcome as can be. M-I-C-K-E-Y.
Stanley Kubrick was widely regarded as one of the greatest and most controversial masters of cinema. He'd just finished what was to be his last film, Eyes Wide Shut, which took 5 years to make.
Now, I shared 3 years of my life with this man, and
it must have been an unbelievable thing to have heard that he died so soon after the film had been finished. What was that to your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction was one of absolute shock. And disbelief. went to the funeral. Going to the funeral, I was not in a good way, and I was very concerned about Nick and very concerned about Christian and his family. And that's because somewhere still inside, I thought, and Nick and I are tired, that it's not true. Somewhere deep inside, I wanted to believe this is not true, that I'm going to go and I will show up at the house and he will be there. It was illogical, and it wasn't something that I actually, but somewhere there was a part of me that went there, and not until we went into the room where we'd have dinner with Christian and we drank, when Nick and I were first there in the fireplace, and there was Stanley and Christian, and and there was the coffin, and it just was absolutely absurd.
Kubrick was one of the greatest directors who ever lived. His work is still loved today and will never be forgotten.